Let me paint a picture for you. It's late at night, you're driving home. You don't feel drunk. Then you see them red and blue lights. 30 minutes later, you're in handcuffs. You're charged with a DWI in Texas. And here's the part that most people don't realize: not all DWIs are the same. One number, one prior case, one passenger in your car, any of those can turn a misdemeanor into a felony and change your life forever. All right, I want you to stay with me because today I'm breaking down exactly how DWI's laws work in Texas and how they escalate super fast. All right, I'm Ruben Restrepo. I'm a Texas DWI lawyer. I work in DWI, criminal defense, immigration, and I handle DWI cases every day, from the first time arrest to serious felony charges. In the next few minutes, I'm going to explain the major types of DWIs under Texas law, and it's going to be in plain English. You'll understand the difference between a first DWI, a high BAC, repeat offenses, dealing with children, and felony DWIs. And at the end, I'll explain how DWIs are lesser included offenses, especially when the charges start with intox. And that's where a lot of people get blindsided. So let's start with the basics. A DWI first offense is usually a Class B misdemeanor. In Texas, you can be arrested for a DWI if your blood alcohol concentration is 0.080 or higher, right? Or you've lost the normal use of your mental and physical faculties. You know what that is when somebody's acting like that, right? Even if your BAC is under 0.08. Penalties, they can include up to 180 days in jail, $2,000 fine, driver's license suspension. And here's what most people, they don't realize. You do not need a breath test to be convicted of a DWI. You do not need a blood test to be convicted of a DWI. The officer, what they observe, that alone is enough. All right, now quick reminder, if you want clear explanations of Texas criminal law that actually affect real people, subscribe to the channel. This is where I break down laws for everybody before it becomes a problem for you. Now, here's where things quietly get worse. If your BAC, blood alcohol concentration, remember, is 0.15 or higher, your first DWI gets enhanced. It goes from Class B to Class A misdemeanor. Same arrest, same night, but now the penalties increase. Up to 1 year in jail, up to a $4,000 fine. I want you to stay with me, right? That BAC number alone often changes the entire case. A DWI second is treated very differently. This is a Class A misdemeanor, no matter what your BAC is. Penalties, they include this: mandatory jail time, higher finances, longer license suspensions. And here's the trap. In Texas, old DWIs still count. Even cases from decades ago, 20, 30 years, they can come back to haunt you. This next one shocks parents, all right? If you're arrested for a DWI with a child that's under 15 years old in the vehicle, this is not just an enhanced DWI, it's a totally separate offense. It is a state jail felony. Punishment can include minimum 180 days, 6 months in jail, or 2 years in state jail, up to $10,000 fine. And yes, these cases often involve child protective services. This is where things can spiral pretty fast. A third DWI is where everything changes. This is just a straight up felony. Specifically, felony in the third degree. Punishment ranges from the minimum of 2 years up to 10 years in prison. No more jails, right? Up to a $10,000 fine. At this level, your entire past is going to matter. You're just going to be looking at those papers. This is the most important part coming up. Intox assault, intox manslaughter. They're built on DWIs. Intoxication assault means you were intoxicated and caused serious bodily injury. Intox manslaughter means you were intoxicated and caused someone's death. Okay. Now, these cases, they deal with a DWI because a DWI is a lesser included offense. That means you're in that car and you hit somebody, and the state, what do they got to prove? First, that you were intoxicated, right? Second, that intoxication caused the injury or the death. Now, why does that matter? I'm going to tell you why. If causation fails, if the state can't prove the intoxication caused the harm, that case can fall back to a DWI or even be dismissed. It just depends, right? I've seen this distinction mean the difference between prison and freedom. So here's the takeaway. In Texas, DWI charges escalate quickly. BAC matters. Prior cases matter. Who's in your car matters. And what happens after the stop matters most. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop your questions in the chat. Drop your questions in the comments. Some of the best insights come from real situations people are dealing with right now, right? So if you're dealing with something, right? Or if someone you know is dealing with something, they're facing a DWI charge, an intox charge, a DWI third, don't guess the way through it. Use the link in the description, schedule a confidential consultation. The earlier you act, the more options you're going to have, right? I'm Ruben Restrepo. Let's get into your questions, okay? All right. Brandon Smith asked, if you have a lockbox with your firearm locked in, can you still get in trouble for a DWI? So the answer to that is kind of like separate, right? Can you get in trouble for a DWI? I think what he's really trying to say is, like, if you got a firearm, will there be a firearm charge attached to the DWI? The answer is it depends, right? If it's locked, did they ever get to see it, right? Most of the time, they're going to do a search of the car if they are arresting you for a DWI. This is called an inventory search, right? And when they do an inventory search, that's because they want to make sure that there's nothing bad in the car. They want to look for things like, I don't know, drugs or something, right? Now, this is a kind of like a surface level look at a car. If something is already locked, I don't think they're going to be going through a big deal to try and unlock it or to break the lock. Is it possible? Sure. But I think what's more likely to happen is they're going to try and get a search warrant to see what's in there, right? But it really does depend on what it says, but I just think it wouldn't even be an issue. But if there's a gun in the car, then yeah, they can definitely say it, because a DWI is a crime. And so that means that's unlawful carry while you're committing the crime. And so they can definitely put the two together. That doesn't mean that you're going to get convicted for either one. Just got to get help, probably from a lawyer, you know. So let's see. Next question. Brandon continued to ask, different situation. The cops want to search your car and see your lockbox. Do you have to give them the combo to search that, even if no drugs, no drinking involved? Basically, cops are blocked from going into your lockbox. Okay, So this is very different. The answer based on what you're presenting, right? So now we're throwing away the possibility of another crime, no DWI, no drugs, no reason to really search the car. The answer is, how are they going to, what's the probable cause? Probable cause means that a crime probably occurred. So why are they searching your car? A crime probably occurred. It's as simple as that. Now, will they try to search your car if a crime did not probably occur? The answer is yes. A lot of times they're thinking, they have a suspicion, or they have a hunch, right? They just feel something, feels like you did something wrong. And so they want to look for something. And if they find something, so what are they going to do in those cases, right? A lot of people have been arrested just because the officer felt that a crime probably occurred, but they didn't see anything, right? It's not about feeling, it's about specific, articulable facts that a crime probably occurred, right? Now, they can point to specific, articulable facts that a crime may have occurred, right? That's going to be more of a reasonable suspicion. They're suspicious that something happened. So let me give you the example that always pops in my head. You're in a bad neighborhood, a neighborhood known for drugs, right? And I don't mean like the entire neighborhood. I mean like a certain section, right? That people, we know certain sections, like certain corners, right, sell drugs, right? Alleyways, they do that. Cop is cop is there in their patrol car, and they see two figures. They look like they're going like this. Here's the money. Here's your drugs, right? The cop isn't right there. They're in their car. They're further away. They can't hear, right? But the place kind of is known for that. It looks like a transaction. So now the cop has enough for a reasonable suspicion to detain somebody for an investigation, right? Basically, this is what happens with all traffic stops, right? So, okay, I feel like this is what's going on. Now, let's translate that to the car. What would be reasonable suspicion for a stop? Let's say a car is kind of weaving in and out of traffic, right? But not really. They're going in, out, looks pretty bad. Maybe a whole situation of, it seems like it's reckless driving. Now, you can imagine somebody's driving, they're messing around with their phone, right? And they go, oh, shoot. They shouldn't have been doing that. But we don't know if they were messing around with their phone. We don't know if they're drunk. Just that quick, something can happen. But what if nothing happens, right? A cop sees it and they think, that was a bit reckless. It may not be reckless. I'm going to stop them anyways, just to see what's going on. And then they find out, oh, maybe somebody's lost, right? Somebody drives down the wrong way, right? The GPS told them to go that way. That's another thing. These are reasonable suspicions, right? Not necessarily enough. Then they speak to the person and they find out, oh, they weren't intending to do this. They didn't make the mistake. It was just a mistake. I'm not even going to give a ticket. They let them go, right? But now we're in a situation for, they've stopped you, but can they search the car? You haven't smelled anything. There's no drugs, right? Maybe you just looked weird, right? You're all tatted up or something. And maybe you're listening to music that's disparaging towards certain people. Like, wait, people like this. So they just get a feeling. What are they going to do? They're going to say, hey, let me search your car. And if you say yes, they're going to be able to look into your car. Now, if something is locked, you don't have to say, oh, well, here's a combination. That is like when you see that on TV, it's like, you're going to get in more trouble. No, unless there's another charge, I would say they can maybe do something like obstructing justice, right? But the Fifth Amendment is going to come into play there, right? You don't have to give them permission against yourself, right? And if they're asking you the number to unlock your phone or unlock, it has to be a reasonable search and seizure, right? They're seizing your phone, they're seizing your lockbox. You don't have to provide that. They just have to have enough. And the proper procedure is to go to a judge. Now, does that mean that they get to just take everything of yours and then go to a judge? No, they can call on the phone and get a phone warrant, or they can email and then get a warrant. There's a lot of ways they can do this. They don't always exercise this. That's why most of the time they're trying to get your permission. Okay, next question. TMTSA asks, I have a LTC. Am I allowed to pick up my daughter from school through car pickup while carrying? Well, that one is a little bit dangerous. I would say you can't get on the school ground. So I'm saying if you're just picking her up, right, from there, I would say you're probably not going to get into trouble, right? But let's say you maybe a fight breaks out, right? And you're actually carrying right here. You get out of your car to stop it, but you're carrying, I would say you would get into trouble because you're not supposed to be in a school, right? So if a cop stops you and then they see that you are armed, yeah, they can definitely charge you, right? So but you may know somebody who's done it before and they never got into any trouble. And it there's a lot of different circumstances. I mean, if you're just picking somebody up and you're leaving, I would say that most of the time you're just it's not gonna be enough to where you're gonna have that interaction with an officer. But you are technically breaking the law. You brought a gun on school grounds. So I wouldn't do it. I just would not have it in there at all. Okay. Okay. Mike Smalley asked, can a gun be in a holster but in plain sight? Yeah, I mean that's literally Texas open carry. Of course your gun could be in. There's nothing, everything right there was completely legal. As long as it's in a holster, pretty much everybody's going to see you and think that it's good, right? Now, I know we got a lot of stuff going on. People are dying because they're having guns in holsters, and there's a lot of fighting about it. What I'll just say to that is that what they're claiming in that situation is that there was some kind of interference. Now, interference does have to be physical, so you got to be pretty careful there, but it can up the ante, and that's why we got to be careful what we have. Just because we have the right to something doesn't mean we get to control how other people feel. However, it doesn't take away your right. And so, it's a small consolation that it's a right that somebody can do a wrongful death claim if you're dead. So you got to be very careful out there. So if it's in a holster, it's in plain view. It can be seen, right? But remember, you're not violating anything if it's in a holster and it's not on you. If it's in a holster in a car, and just like in the back seat, like I always give that example of the car's in the back seat, right? But not in a holster. Guess what? That's plain view, not in a holster. They're going to be searching your car. That's going to be everything that they need, probable cause, right? But if it's in a holster, now they don't really have enough. But it may be suspicion, and now they're going to be talking to you, asking you extra questions. Are you going to say something that's going to give them the excuse? Yes, I was smoking marijuana earlier today, sir, but not while in the car. And that was much, much earlier yesterday. No, that ain't going to work. They searching your car. Okay. Tony Beck asked, show me where it says in the Constitution where you have to holster your gun. Okay. So this is I get a lot of these comments, right? I don't even understand these comments, right? Show you in the Constitution. guess what? I'm going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. I will not be able to show you in the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution is a framework. Now, I'm going to say something that you're probably not asking for, which is, what is the foundation of the law that says now you have to have your gun holstered, right? In these specific circumstances. Well, let's talk about the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Okay, so what are we thinking about here? What is this basically saying? It's basically saying this is why we have to have like very specific federal charges, right? And most federal criminal charges have something to do with interstate, two different states. Why? Because if you commit a crime in a different state, like Louisiana, you have not committed a crime in Texas. So Texas cannot hold you accountable for that crime at all, right? Now, you might be thinking, okay, so I went into Texas. Can Texas arrest me? No, no, no. Think of it like this. Can Texas say, hey, you committed a crime against this person that we like, right? We like this person so much that we're going to go into Texas, take you, and bring you over here. It's kind of like Maduro, right? Like we went into Venezuela and picked them up. We kind of don't have the right to do that. However, why do we claim that we have a right to do that? Well, because the reason that we're messing with the sovereignty of another nation is because we're saying we are executing a warrant because Maduro supposedly or allegedly, I'm trying to be lawyerly here, right? Committed crimes against people of the United States. So he brought himself into the jurisdiction of the United States. So Texas, though, they can't do that at all to anybody in Louisiana. You have to do something in Texas, right? So then this was a problem. And so what they do to prevent this problem is they say, okay, same charge, but this charge is going to be if you cross state lines. That's why you don't really see DWIs. Nobody's getting charged with DWIs from the feds. FBI isn't like, oh, you were driving while intoxicated. No. If you were driving while intoxicated and you cross state lines, they're probably still not going to be able to come after you, right? They're going to get you for something else, something different, okay? But it's not going to be that. So what we have here is a difference between a right and a regulation. So let's think about the First Amendment. The First Amendment can be regulated. So the Second Amendment, right? The Second Amendment saying infringing would be, the people's right to bear arms shall not be infringed, right? So it almost feels like it's saying that Second Amendment is more than the first. No. These are our rights. These are just plain and simple. You have the freedom of speech. You have the freedom to bear arms, right? But they can be regulated within the states. Now, is there something very specifically that is it explained? Yeah, I mean, this is a question and answer, so we're not going to go completely into it, right? But there is a case, Ruben, which basically says that there has to be like a historical basis for the Second Amendment restriction or regulation, right? So that's why historically 15-year-olds cannot have a gun, but 15-year-olds are people. And so the plain language, but it's historic that they can't have guns. So therefore they can't have guns, right? First Amendment, you can say whatever you want to, but you can't threaten somebody. You threaten somebody, that's it, right? The states can regulate your speech in those specific instances, right? So it's not about no for no sake. It's about regulation is about how you can use it, right? Very specific, very narrow. Now there is a big thing, and if you go to law school, you learn, right? Like if there's a law and it restricts one of the amendments, there is something called strict scrutiny where they look at it and it's a high burden to pass, right? Which is why you've seen so many laws go away, right? But why are these laws staying? I mean, look, plain and simple, Texas is a Second Amendment state and it still has these laws. So, but I understand. But I definitely appreciate everybody watching. Please leave your questions in the comments. I'll talk more about it. I talk about DWIs and the way that they affect you, how our open carry laws affect you, how assaults affect you. I'm here for you.